From unsolved mysteries to unexplained phenomena, from comedy gold to relationship fails, Amazon Music's got the most ad-free top podcasts, included with Prime. Because the only thing that should interrupt your listening is, well, nothing. Download the Amazon Music app today.
Playwright Anton Chekhov famously said, "Never place a loaded rifle on stage if it isn't going to go off." In other words, every detail must be relevant, and every setup should have a payoff. Thus, the narrative principle of Chekhov's gun was born. But it isn't always a gun. Chekhov's Whatever is a podcast where myself and guests watch a movie and try to predict what role Chekhov's gun will play. Welcome to Chekhov's Whatever. Hello and welcome to Chekhov's Whatever, the podcast that makes a game of movies and storytelling. I'm your host, Meg Mazeski. Here with me today to talk about the 2025 action sci-fi thriller Jurassic World Rebirth is Mel Lake. Welcome to the podcast, Mel.
Thank you.
So Mel and I are lifelong friends. We've known each other since we were wee babes in grade school, but for the first time ever in our many years of friendship, we are recording a podcast together. Mel, why don't you tell the listeners a little bit more about yourself?
Okay. And thank you for having me. And thank you for having me on my very first podcast ever.
Pop in the podcast cherry.
Yay. Hopefully I'll do okay. So like Meg said, we have known each other for a very, very long time. And so I'm a writer and editor. My career has been mostly in technical writing and editing, and I dabble in creative writing as well. I kind of do a lot of different things. Some of them I do well, some of them I don't. But I live in Denver with my dog, and that's me.
That's Mel in a nutshell. And yes, thank you for joining me to talk about the 2025 action sci-fi thriller Jurassic World Rebirth. This is the 7th full-length feature film of the widely popular Jurassic Park franchise, and 4th in the Jurassic World series of movies more specifically. This movie takes place 5 years after the events of Jurassic World Dominion. An expedition braves isolated equatorial regions to extract dino DNA from 3 massive prehistoric creatures for a groundbreaking medical breakthrough. This movie stars Scarlett Johansson, Jonathan Bailey, and Mahershala Ali, among many other people. Huge cast. This was directed by Gareth Edwards and written by David Koepp. Interestingly, David Koepp also wrote the OG Jurassic Park screenplay and the Lost World screenplay.
Oh, way back in the day? Interesting.
Way back in the day, yes. So that maybe explains a little bit why this movie has a let's play the greatest hits type of feel to it. Also, David Koepp, this is the 3rd David Koepp movie I've covered on Chekhov's Whatever. If you want to check out my episodes about Presence and Black Bag, go give those a listen. Currently on Rotten Tomatoes, this movie has a 51% critic score and a 71% audience score. So, Mel, did you have any expectations going into this movie? Any thoughts on the Jurassic Park franchise in general?
Yeah, so my expectations going in, I had one expectation, and that was that 3 highly paid, attractive people would be traipsing through the jungle with CGI dinosaurs. And overall, I would say that that expectation was met, maybe not exceeded, and we'll get into that a little bit later, but
needed more traipsing or more dinosaurs?
More of the 3 core cast, maybe.
Well, that too, for sure.
Overall, that my expectations were very low. And the other thing I thought about when I suggested this movie was that I do not have a ton of like core cultural nostalgia for the Jurassic Park franchise. I know a lot of people of our age maybe went and saw them in the theaters and have a lot of nostalgia for the original movies.
That's me.
I kind of thought that might be the case. And for some reason, I didn't. I don't think I saw the original in the theaters. And if I did, I don't remember it. So I think my first memory of Jurassic Park is actually like Mrs. Danowski's middle school science class. I think we saw the movie in school. Amazing. On like a little tiny TV.
Just how Jurassic Park was meant to be viewed.
Yeah, exactly, right? That's how you're supposed to see it. So yeah, so my nostalgia for the franchise is not nearly as high as, say, like Star Trek. You know,
Yes.
that's the franchise that I have a lot of feelings and opinions about. But Jurassic Park are just sort of fun dinosaur movies to me that I don't have a lot of attachment to, which I think maybe makes me not a great guest on the podcast, but maybe it gives a different, I don't know, I have a different view of it that I'm not necessarily attached to a lot of the core elements of the franchise.
I am the type of elder millennial you described. I do have a deep connection to this franchise. I saw it in theaters when I was 10. I loved it, even though it scared the crap out of me. I also read the book when I was 10. I have a very distinct memory of doing a book report on the book and maybe freaking out my teacher a little bit because we had to, I guess, perform a scene. So I performed the scene in which Dennis Nedry is killed by Dilophosaurus.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I thought it was amazing. That's one of my core memories. Absolutely loved the movies. I collected the trading cards. I had little action figures. I had a rubber velociraptor mask for a Halloween costume. I think 10-year-old me would both be delighted and disappointed to know that Jurassic Park movies are still going on, because it was a dream of mine to be in a Jurassic Park movie. And the fact that they're still being made now that I'm 40 years old, 30 years later, it could still happen.
Scarlett Johansson is not that much younger than us. I mean, it could still happen.
And I would not require $20 million to appear in a Jurassic Park movie, unlike ScarJo. And to echo what you were saying, you know, we've got the star power of this cast here. I love ScarJo. Jonathan Bailey is pretty new to me, but I think he's quite hot. And audiences were going crazy for his, quote, slutty little glasses. And, you know, I'm on board for the slutty little glasses. Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. I will say, talking about Jonathan Bailey is a little bit funny for me because objectively, like, sure, I'm here for those slutty little glasses. He's an attractive man, but I cannot see him and not think of the BBC shows that he was in. So to me, I look at him and I'm like, that's the Weasley guy from W1A, or the Weasley guy from that one season of Broadchurch that went totally off the rails.
Yes.
I don't remember which one it was, but like, that's what I see when I look at him. And so it was kind of funny to see him in this big blockbuster action movie as like the sexy guy.
He does have a Weasley quality to him, and I do feel like he came off quite Weasley in the trailers, to the extent that I was pleasantly surprised when I actually saw the movie, because I was like, oh, they toned down the weasel factor in the movie itself.
Yeah, I didn't get much weasel from him in this. But I've never seen Bridgerton, so that also did not really factor into me with Jonathan Bailey. Yeah, he's still like the nerdy BBC guy to me.
Oh, well, that factored in for me, for sure. All right, but before we get into Jurassic World Rebirth, here's a quick overview of how Chekhov's Whatever works. This is a podcast where myself and the guest watch and review a movie that's new to us. We also play a game where we try to guess what Chekhov's gun will be and how it will play out later in the movie. Chekhov's gun is a plot element that must have a setup and a payoff. That setup usually happens in Act 1, and the payoff typically comes later in Act 3. A Chekhov's gun is also usually a concrete item, action, or person rather than something symbolic or thematic. And finally, a Chekhov's gun should move the plot forward in a meaningful way. We get 2 points if we correctly identify a Chekhov's gun. We also get an additional point if we correctly guess how that Chekhov's gun will pay off. And finally, we lose 1 point if we incorrectly guess a Chekhov's gun and its role. Whoever has the most points at the end of the movie wins. All right, we start the movie 17 years ago at an island InGen laboratory off the coast of French Guiana. A bumbling researcher drops his Snickers bar candy wrapper, which then somehow short-circuits the lab's security system and unleashes the monstrous D-Rex. I looked this up. D-Rex is apparently short for Distortus Rex.
I saw that too. And so I admit I had been spoiled for the D-Rex, just the fact that it was called D-Rex. My friend saw the movie a couple days before I had, and she said, oh yeah, it's a D-Rex. But did they actually say Distortus in the movie, or was that like apocryphal?
I did not hear it said in the movie, which is why I had to look it up. And
Yeah.
when I read it online, I laughed because I was like, did George Lucas name this?
Well, because I thought, like, I don't know, I kept thinking the D was going to come up at some point, and then I saw online afterwards that it was Distortus, and I
Yes.
like, where did that come from?
Maybe they didn't want to spell it out because they thought it would spoil the big reveal of what the dinosaur looks like. We'll put a pin in that for now.
They showed in the trailer.
They did, yes, unfortunately. But yeah, so this D-Rex is not as scary or ominous as the movie would like us to think, but it does kill a bunch of researchers, havoc ensues. Not since Mission to Mars and Dr. Pepper has a product placement been more plot critical than this Snickers wrapper unleashing the D-Rex.
Yeah, right off the bat, what did you think about the Snickers?
Okay, product placement is a huge pet peeve of mine. And unfortunately, I will have a lot more to say about that as this movie goes on. And also, product placement really fuzzes the radar when it comes to identifying a Chekhov's gun, because a lot of times you can home in on a Chekhov's gun because there's a literal like zoom in on an object of some kind. And you know what? 50% of the time it's just product placement. It's not because it's actually something important.
Yeah, we'll probably get to this later, but so I mean I wrote down in my notes app Chekhov's product placement just because I thought it was funny.
Yes.
And then it's like, wait a minute, no, this actually is factoring into the plot. Like, what the heck?
Yes. With this particular Snickers wrapper, I wouldn't call it a Chekhov's gun because the payoff comes immediately after the setup, like within the same scene. But it's still pretty funny. It's still pretty notable, and it definitely draws your attention to it. And the other thing I would say about this opening scene is I feel like you just have to compare these Jurassic Park movies to every Jurassic Park movie that came before, especially when it's clearly trying to ape the original in so many ways. And I'm like, okay, well, this cold opening isn't anywhere nearly as good as the shoot her opening of the original Jurassic Park. But then again, maybe that's too unfair of a comparison.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty silly. It set the tone for the movie of like, okay, we're kicking things off. This is not gonna, I don't know, this isn't gonna take itself too terribly seriously. And it just, I will say I appreciated that it was sort of a short, let's just get us to the action. It was ridiculous, but it didn't take a long time.
I think you do have to start a Jurassic Park movie with a bang. Someone's got to get chomped by a dino immediately.
Yeah. I also wrote down, so you're not yourself when you're hungry, and raptor, is this anything? Like, I don't know.
The D-Rex just needed a Snickers is what you're saying.
Exactly. Exactly. For 17 years it didn't have Snickers? Although I guess there was maybe a convenience store.
Maybe that's why it was hanging out by the convenience store.
Maybe that's why.
That's where all the Snickers were.
But it couldn't open it, even though it had lots of little arms.
Oh, it did have some extra arms. Yeah. So we jump to present day in our next scene, and we get a big old exposition dump. It's been 32 years since dinosaurs have returned, and, quote, public interest has waned, end quote. And due to disease and inhospitable environmental conditions, it turns out most dinosaurs can only now survive at the equator, where human travel is forbidden. We are in New York City, and everyone is annoyed by a dinosaur blocking traffic. We get a little callback gag to the objects and mirror scene from the first movie. I can't even really call it a callback or a gag, since it's just zooming in on the objects and mirror writing on the mirror. And it's like, yeah, okay, I recognize that that's a thing from the original movie, but it's not played for a joke. It just appears on screen. I don't know. I feel very insulted when this happens. I'm like, movie makers, are you expecting me to get joy from recognizing a thing? I think they are, in fact, expecting that.
I think they are. And it felt a little bit checklisty. Like, okay, we have to just check a couple of things off of our list. And I will say that, like, I am not nearly as steeped in the original. Like, I don't remember a lot about the original, but even I was sort of like, okay, he's in a car, there's a rear view mirror, there's a dinosaur, I get it. I just kind of wondered what the New York scene was supposed to really, like, why did it need to be in New York? What was the whole idea, other than to just say, oh, New Yorkers are jaded?
Yes. But also it's like maybe the point would have been made better of people being jaded towards dinosaurs and dinosaurs being totally mundane and boring now if it were set somewhere that wasn't New York,
Yeah.
like if it were a population of people who aren't known or stereotyped as being jaded already.
Yeah.
It's like, of course, New Yorkers aren't going to give a shit about a dinosaur.
It's like, I'm walking here. Like, that's the whole thing with New York.
Yeah.
So if that was the point, I don't know. It seemed like they wanted to film something in New York to get Scarlett Johansson in New York again. And it's like, okay, I don't know if that was a particular Avengers, like, hey, look, it's Scarlett Johansson in New York, but like, that's really the only thing I got from it.
Totally. In this scene, we meet Martin Krebs, played by Rupert Friend. He works for Big Pharma, and his company is looking to acquire dino DNA in order to develop a groundbreaking cure for heart disease. Krebs hires Zora, played by Scarlett Johansson, a spec ops mercenary, and Dr. Harry Loomis, played by Jonathan Bailey, who is an academic who specializes in paleocoronary health, which I guess is a thing in this universe now that dinosaurs walk amongst us.
He's a dinosaur heart doctor.
Yep. Zora and Loomis have been tasked to go on a covert mission to the Forbidden Equatorial region and retrieve blood samples from 3 living colossal dinosaurs whose DNA hold the key to this miracle heart medication. They need to get samples from sea, land, and air dinosaurs, the Mosasaurus, the Titanosaurus, and the Quetzalcoatlus, respectively. So basically, they are on a dinosaur MacGuffin fetch quest.
And they very much establish, like, okay, there's going to be 3.
Yes.
Here you go.
Here's your side quest. Here's your little mission before the main story quest can progress.
Yep. Act 1, Act 2, Act 3. Here you go. Ta-da!
Yes. Zora is in it for the money, of which she is making a lot of, but Loomis is in it for the dinosaurs, the love of the game.
Because nobody cares about dinosaurs anymore.
It's so sad. This is my first official guess, Chekhov's Altoids. Speaking of product placement.
Yeah.
So in this scene, while Loomis is thinking over whether he wants to join the mission or not, he is crunching loudly on a tin of Altoids. It's played for laughs. There's a zoom in on the Altoid tin, and I was like, product placement, you sly dog. Is this all there is? But I'm like, no, I'm going to say that this is a Chekhov's gun. And my guess is that Loomis will either use the Altoids to distract or lure a dinosaur, or he will accidentally call attention to himself by munching on Altoids later in the movie.
I also had Chekhov's breath mints. My guess was the second one, that at some point someone would loudly crunch Altoids, which also seems like not the way that you do Altoids. Like, he really munched on those things. They were loud.
He did. In our next scene, Zora recruits her old mercenary pal and boat captain Duncan Kincaid, played by Mahershala Ali, and he brings along his expendable ragtag team of soon-to-be Dino Chow. Because you have to sprinkle in minor characters among the main characters so that someone gets eaten, of course.
And there has to be a variety of them. So
Yes.
One guy speaks French only for some reason.
For fun. On Duncan's boat, Krebs explains to the assembled team that they're en route to the R&D site for the original park, an abandoned research lab on an equatorial island. This is also where they explain how they're going to retrieve the blood samples. They have these fancy big old dart guns that have blood sample vials in the darts. They shoot the darts into the dinos, it fills up with blood, and then they have this automatic self-ejecting feature that pops them off into the air, and then they land via a parachute.
Sure, why not?
Why not? This is my next guess, Chekhov's self-ejecting darts. So obviously these are going to be used for collecting the blood samples, but I made this a guess in the sense that I think that these darts are going to be used not for their intended purpose, but that they will use them, they will jury rig them in some way to signal for help later in the movie.
I didn't really have anything with the darts. I will say this isn't really a Chekhov's gun or anything like that, but when I think it was in this scene where Jonathan Bailey was talking about, I'll be the one to take the shot. And then ScarJo kind of made fun of him and said, like, can you really do it? Like, no,
Yeah.
I'm going to be the one to do it. And I had an expectation that later on they would have to have the role reversal and Jonathan Bailey would get his like hotshot male protagonist card back. But I was sort of relieved that that was not the case, that he didn't have to like show up ScarJo in and become the man and say, oh no, I can take the shot.
Yes, I am also glad that there wasn't that role reversal. And again, I felt like it was maybe slightly a sidelong callback to the original movie where Ellie Sattler is like, women inherit the earth. You know, I was like, is this just a little like girl power scene?
Yeah.
So yeah, I'd say ultimately not much came of it. It did help a little bit with establishing the character dynamics. Like he underestimates her expertise and then they quickly patch things over once she impresses him with her gun shooting.
Yeah, I was just kind of glad that they didn't do the expected thing and then reverse it later.
So yes, Zora and Loomis get their banter. She also has a heart-to-heart with Duncan, wherein we learn that Zora's work partner died in a car bombing, her mom died, Duncan and his wife separated after their young son died, yada, yada, yada. They're all very tragic and tortured, of course. This felt all very forced to me. It just so much shortcutting to try to get you to care about these characters. And, you know, it's that classic telling without showing. This is like screenplay cardinal sin. You know, I don't know. I really hated this exposition. It was very annoying to me.
I also felt like it was just sort of awkward. The two actors didn't really have that much chemistry. Like ScarJo and Jonathan Bailey had a little bit, but ScarJo and Mahershala Ali didn't really have that much chemistry at all. And I felt like it was sort of the beginning of a major theme of the movie, which was that you got an Oscar winner and he did all of the acting and the rest of them were kind of just cardboard cutouts. Like Jonathan Bailey was fine. ScarJo was fine, I guess. But Mahershala Ali, I felt like did all of the acting in this movie. Like he was the only one that really kind of sold it.
I would say on their own, all three of these actors individually are quite charismatic.
Oh, sure.
Obviously. But as you said, like there's no real chemistry between them. So it could have been even worse if they weren't all oozing natural charisma out their ears. But since they are, you know, I'm kind of two minds. I'm like, I liked them just because these are likable people, but it all did feel quite phoned in general.
It felt rote. And I think part of it was that ScarJo was trying to be the stoic badass character. And we expect that of maybe a male actor, but it also just meant that she didn't really do a whole lot. And I just didn't get a real sense of her as a character. So it just sort of felt one note.
And we probably could have gotten a better sense of all these characters if they were the only main characters. But let me introduce you to the Delgado family. The Delgado family is the father, Ruben, his eldest daughter, Teresa, her good-for-nothing boyfriend, Xavier, and the obligatory kid, because every Jurassic Park movie needs one, apparently, Isabella. They are on their sailboat on a family trip when they are capsized by the huge marine dinosaur, the Mosasaurus. This is my next guest, Chekhov's junk food. The young daughter, Isabella, is eating a bunch of junk food, red licorice in particular. It's pointed out how much junk food she's eating. So I think that, like the Altoids, the junk food will be used to distract or lure a dinosaur later in the movie.
I also had Chekhov's snacks. Yeah, Chekhov's snacks. After the Snickers and the Altoids, I thought, okay, there cannot possibly be another candy item. And yet it was so clear when they called it out in dialogue and then also zoomed in on her eating the licorice that this was going to be a thing. So my prediction was also that well, I had two ideas. The one was that she was going to use it to lure a dinosaur. The other thing was that the dad, I called him wholesome dad because he was just sort of wholesome family dad. That wholesome dad says something about like, you need to ration these because you're going to miss them when they're gone. And so I figured that would probably come up later, and that perhaps that would maybe even tie into something else. Like, it happened not long after they were talking about some special neurotoxin bullets that they were going to use.
Yes.
And so I thought, okay, maybe they're going to run out of ammo at some point.
Oh, I see. Yes. Good guesses. Duncan intercepts the Delgados' Mayday call and they go rescue them. The Mosasaurus attacks again and they chase after it. Cue action scene. Zora almost gets chomped, but she does successfully shoot the dinosaur with the dart gun and they retrieve their first blood sample. They all celebrate. I have to say, I think this is probably my favorite set piece of the movie. I liked that it was on a boat. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't remember any boat scenes in any previous Jurassic Park movies. I felt like they really were on a boat. I don't know if they were or not, but it was convincing to me. And I think that Jurassic Park movies are always more successful in their action scenes or even just their special effects in general when you get a real sense of the scale of the dinosaur. Like, that's a freaking huge, big, scary thing. And I felt like this scene was successful at conveying that. There's this huge, monstrous, scary thing under the water. It ticked a lot of those boxes that I think make a good action/monster scene.
I agree. I think that's the action scene with them shooting the dinosaur and the one previously where it attacks the family had enough elements that worked for me. I liked those two scenes. I thought they did well at establishing the threat and the dinosaur. And I think it had that sort of Jaws factor of you see something that's really huge and then you see this tiny boat. And that's just sort of an elemental, I don't know, you can put yourself in that situation fairly easily, even without it being a dinosaur. You know, I think it's fairly easy to feel that tension there. So I agree. I thought those scenes worked for me. And I felt that the boat, like the boat did feel real. It did feel like the setting, you know, you didn't see a ton of CGI, or, I mean, of course there was CGI of the dinosaurs, but it felt like there was enough of a real setting to place you there and to have you feel the, you know, the action. I liked it. I liked that scene. I also liked that ScarJo was kind of like tethered to the boat. And so you felt a little bit of her like, okay, she can't move. So, you know, it restricted her in a way that I thought worked for me.
Yeah, having the confinement of the boat and, like you said, the very small people versus the very big dinosaur, it does add to the peril and the stakes of the scene, making it feel real in that sense.
Yeah, I will say, going back to the family on the boat, one of the things I also noted that made me feel a little bit cynical was that the family had like an American flag, and they really made sure to tell us that, like, you can care about this family, they're American.
They sure did. Yeah, that American flag felt very prominent, and I think they were also very intentional in being like, oh, don't worry, they're not on a boat to try to get to America. Like, don't worry about that. They're great citizens. Yeah, it did feel very forced in an icky way. After they retrieve the first blood sample, Loomis puts a bug in Zora's ear. He suggests that she think about not turning over the blood samples to Big Pharma, and he also says that such knowledge should belong to everyone. And then a bunch of Spinosauruses attack. They come back with the Mosasaurus, they attack the boat. Krebs turns out, shocker, to be a bad dude who only cares about the bottom line. Who could have ever guessed that the Big Pharma capitalist would be the baddie? I'm shocked.
Shocking. Just so shocking.
Yes. Krebs does not save Teresa from falling overboard, and he never even wanted to answer the Delgados' distress call in the first place. And, you know, in hindsight, I'm Team Krebs on this one.
I will say, I'm not really familiar with the actor that played Krebs, but he was a good bad guy. He was definitely a good bad guy. He was convincing the whole way. It was like, yeah, you definitely wanted to see that guy get chomped.
Absolutely. You know by now in this scene that he's definitely the bad guy, so of course he will get his just desserts. And he also says in an upcoming scene that he's, quote, too smart to die, end quote. So it's like, okay, yeah, this guy is going to meet a gnarly end, I'm sure. The Delgados abandon ship before it crashes onto the beach of the island, and they are separated from the rest of our heroes. This is the point where the movie essentially splinters into two separate unconnected, disconnected movies. And God, this was such a poor choice, I feel like. It kills all momentum in the movie because we'll be with one team of characters for a little while. They'll be getting up to whatever they're doing. Team A collecting the blood samples, Team B, the Delgados, trying to escape off the island. And every time it cuts back and forth, it just kills any sort of momentum that the movie has built. I really hated this.
It also sort of undermines, I think, what they're trying to do with the family, because I mean, we'll get there later, but I do feel like, the kid and wanting to save the kid is a way of getting us to care about other characters.
Yes.
It's a way of getting us to care about Xavier, because as soon as Xavier is established as kind of an asshole. Can I say asshole on the podcast? He was an asshole. But that he's going to get a redemption arc as soon as he jumps into the water. And then that he's going to continue to get a little bit of a redemption arc. Yes. And then that whoever helps the kid is going to be, get a redemption and have a nice character moment. But by splitting them, you really just have the characters that are already established as caring about each other for most of the movie until the end when they're reunited. And we know that they're going to get reunited. The A team and the B team are going to come together. But I do feel like it undermines what they're trying to do.
It could have been done more successfully if, kind of like in the first Jurassic Park, the A plot and the B plot are more connected, because Dr. Alan Grant is stuck with the kids for the majority of the movie. So we start with these divorced characters, like Grant has nothing to do with the kids and he really doesn't want anything to do with the kids. But then, that's his character arc when he's stuck with them for the rest of the movie. That's what changes him. But in this movie, the teams essentially stay totally separate until the end. And we do get that one little payoff, I suppose. Even all that being said, I think that the Delgado storyline could have been more successful for me personally if just the set pieces had been more exciting, because most of the Delgado scenes are a little bit of family drama sprinkled in on an action scene. The Delgados get a lot of action scenes, but I didn't find any of them to be particularly interesting to me. So even if the action had been successful, I would have been less annoyed by the splintering of the movie.
Exactly. And I do think it bothered me because as soon as Mahershala Ali had that moment where he had a son that he lost.
Yes.
That there's going to be some type of connection with the young daughter, but then they separated them. And so it just could have been, it was a missed opportunity that they could have had the family separate. And then I think their character moments could have been more interesting because it would have put them with the main cast. And then the main cast, who didn't really have that much chemistry with each other, even though these are our movie stars, they could have had some chemistry with the unknown or like the lesser known actors of the Delgado family. But instead it was sort of like we're watching two different stories.
Yeah, just tenuously connected.
Yeah, and I agree with the Delgado scenes. Like I did enjoy them for the most part. Like the part where the T-Rex swims.
That was fun.
That was cool. And the part with the raft, that was cool. But were they essential to the movie and to the plot? Maybe not.
Mm-hmm. When they arrive on the island, Krebs reveals that it was used as a dumping ground for InGen's failed genetic hybrids, dinos that were either too messed up or too dangerous for the public. But fortunately for them, Zora has arranged a backup plan. They have 2 nights to reach the island's helipad for extraction, but only after they get the remaining samples.
And the helicopter will only be there for 2 minutes or something, because we can't possibly have a working plan.
We have to have some manufactured stakes. So yes, they will only circle for 2 minutes. They won't land because, fair enough, the pilots don't want to land in dino territory. We cut back to the Delgados as they are making their way across the island. Ruben is slowly coming around to Xavier, especially since he, like you said, jumped off the boat to help save Teresa. And also Isabella befriends an adorable baby Aqualops and names her Dolores. Merchandising opportunity.
This was one that I thought, okay, I don't know if this is a Chekhov's little tiny dinosaur, But I definitely thought like, okay, tiny dinosaur is going to have a big dinosaur mom. That was my Chekhov's little tiny dinosaur. So I then connected it with the licorice, like, okay, she's going to use the candy to get the little dinosaur.
Yes.
And then little dinosaur is going to have a big mom. And then big mom is going to come in at an opportune moment. That was my thought at this point with the little tiny dinosaur that's a cute friend.
I like your thought. I also had Chekhov's baby Aqualops as a guess of mine. I thought that Isabella would escape from the island with the smuggled Aqualops, and somehow this baby's dinosaur will hold the final key to the heart disease cure.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it'll turn out there was something missing from the cure. Like they needed more than these 3 blood samples, maybe some sort of, I don't know, something closer to a stem cell. So this baby dinosaur will help them create the final cure.
I think you have just written the sequel.
Perhaps.
It was about at this point, maybe a little bit earlier, that I will say I started trying to figure out, okay, what order the deaths are going to be in.
Yes. No one's going to die. What are you talking about?
What? I would be so disappointed if no one died. And I will say I was actually quite proud of myself for being correct. Like I got them in the correct order.
Oh, mm-hmm.
Yeah. So if nothing else, if I did nothing else about this game correct, at least I got the deaths in the right order.
Speaking of the game, I did have one more guess related to these Delgado family scenes. Chekhov's geothermal water pipes. So in these scenes, they are following the geothermal water pipes to a village or town in order to seek help. My guess is that they will purposefully rupture these water pipes to fend off a dinosaur with the scalding water.
Oh, that's an interesting guess. I did not think that at all.
Well, it might be an interesting guess, but maybe not a good one.
I had another minor Chekhov's guess, actually. And I'm not sure which scene it was, but with the Delgados at one point, they say, you need to have a stick, a helpful stick that's going to help you. And I thought maybe that at some point someone would have a stick and it would do something.
Chekhov's stick.
Didn't pan out that way.
Meanwhile, the other team is moving on to their second fetch quest, the Titanosaurus. It's kind of like a Brontosaurus. It's one of those big long-necked dinos. This scene has very similar vibes to They Do Move in Herds scene from the original movie. They play the iconic theme song, of course. Zora gets a sample of the Titanosaurus's blood while the dinos are quite literally necking.
Yeah, this scene to me was Bridgerton interrupting a moment. He was really being a third wheel to these two dinosaurs that seemed to be having a nice, lovely, romantic evening together.
A little romantic moment, making a little heart with their long necks and their long tails.
It was so cute. And then Jonathan Bailey has to just, I don't know, go up there and hug them.
I know, right?
Weird. A little bit weird, man.
Yeah, he takes this opportunity to give him a little pat on the legs, and he gets all verklempt and teary-eyed about it. And I just have to say, isn't this his, job? He's a paleocardiologist. Doesn't he interact with living dinosaurs, every day? I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like this is not the first time he's touched a living dinosaur, no?
Well, was that implied earlier where he had never seen one in the field or something? I feel like maybe they had said that.
They did try to sweeten the deal by saying oh, you don't want to be stuck in a musty museum your whole life, do you? But even that being said, I still did not get the impression that he had never seen. I mean, there was a dinosaur in the middle of the street when Krebs was on his way to see Loomis. Yeah. So I just find it unbelievable that he's never interacted with a dinosaur before.
I do think Jonathan Bailey's character in particular also he was the victim of just strange writing choices.
Yes.
Where they were trying to have him be too many different things. So he was supposed to be this wide-eyed, oh, look at the dinosaurs, they're amazing. And of course, that's a great character to have in Jurassic Park. You've got to have a wide-eyed,
you do need the awe on
character.
Screen. Yes.
But then to also have it be, he's the one who's trying to make sure that dinosaurs are still relevant. But then Mahershala Ali at some point says, oh, have you never been in the jungle before? Which would kind of make him like the ingenue, the naive guy,
Mm-hmm.
which was kind of what they were trying for. But then they undercut it immediately by him saying, no, 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 I've been in the jungle a bunch of times. So it's like,
Yeah.
well, which way are you going with his character? Is he the naive guy, the nerdy guy who has never been to the jungle before? Or is he the expert guy? Or what are you doing with his character? Like sometimes his character was the cute nerd, and then sometimes his character was the, oh no, I can do this, I've been in the jungle, I want to
Totally.
die and become a fossil. Like, okay.
Yeah, yeah. And he should maybe also be like the hopeless optimist one, whereas
Yeah.
everyone else is so pessimistic and traumatized. But no, he is also the realist. He's like, oh no, man, humans aren't even gonna exist in the near future, So yeah, a confusing character in general. And I will harp once again on this movie failing to evoke the original feelings of the original Jurassic Park, but I feel like the comparison has to be made when they themselves are making the comparison. So like I said, this scene is very similar to the scene where Dr. Alan Grant sees dinosaurs for the first time, and he takes off his sunglasses and he's all like, they move in herds, they do move in herds. And for the Alan Grant character, he has devoted his whole life in study of these creatures without ever conceiving of the possibility that he would see a dinosaur in his life, because why would he? Obviously, that would not be something he would consider. So in this scene, it's such a pivotal moment for him. His wildest dreams have come true, and something he thought was completely impossible is in fact possible and real. So that's why that scene has so much emotion to it and is so successful. And to just sort of like try to tug at your heartstrings by playing the same theme, and by having Loomis take off his glasses, and by having him, wonder at these dinosaurs, I'm like, it's a completely different character. It's completely different context. Like, no wonder this doesn't evoke the same feelings as the original. It's not the same.
Exactly. This was one of the few, well, maybe one of the first times that I really also felt that the green screen acting was a little bit too obvious to me. And I think it may be because they were trying to evoke that feeling from the original, where, even though I saw the original on a very tiny screen, that was revolutionary at the time, to be able to see these amazing creatures that had been created. But modern audiences are so jaded. We are kind of jaded about dinosaurs.
It's true.
And so to have that amazing, scope of, oh, this valley and these beautiful dinosaurs, it hits differently today on a meta level, because audiences are just kind of used to CGI dinosaurs now.
Yeah.
And so to have Jonathan Bailey in front of a green screen, I felt it a little obvious that he was in front of a green screen and there was dinosaurs. It just didn't look as immersive, even as the 1990 whatever version.
Absolutely. And with the dinosaurs, like very long, sort of like whip-like kind of lizardy tails that are just sort of like floating through the air, that sort of took away from the sense of these being like huge dinosaurs. I don't know. It had the opposite effect to me. It felt very like Avatar and just sort of like floaty. And I'm like, no, I feel like these dinosaurs should feel massive. I want to see the ground shaking, not like these little tails flitting in the wind,
I agree. I think it was trying to do two different things, and those things were conflicting. They were trying to give this sort of romantic, awestruck moment visually by having the tails be floaty and dreamlike, but the actual feeling, you get that by having it feel real, which doesn't jive with having them floating massive tails that don't feel connected to the actual earth that these characters are supposedly standing on.
Completely. I will also point out in this scene, Loomis munches on his Altoids again, and it startles Azora. So at this point, I'm like, okay, this is just a silly gag callback. I don't think anything will come of these Altoids, but, there's still some time left in the movie.
It was at this point, I think, when I was watching this movie with my partner, and he said, all of these candies are made by the same corporation, right? And I was like, oh, okay, that makes sense.
Of course they are.
All of the brands that were featured were made by the Mars company. So
Mars. We cut back to the Delgados. Teresa tries to get a boat for them to traverse the river, but there's a sleepy, eepy little T-Rex next to the boat. Aw. It wakes up and chases them naturally, but they all escape also naturally. I did enjoy parts of the scene. It was fun to see a T-Rex swimming. If this were a Star Wars movie, the characters would be saying, "They swim now? They swim now." Sorry, Rise of Skywalker is such a bad movie. Anyway, overall, I felt like this was a useless scene. I did like the little visual gag of when Teresa inflates the boat and it momentarily obscures the T-Rex, and then when the boat falls into the water, the T-Rex is gone. So you're like, oh, where did the T-Rex go?
I agree. That was a cute. That was cute. I enjoyed the T-Rex scene and the swimming and the raft. It was a fun scene.
Also, it's a cheap nostalgia shot too. It's a T-Rex, you know. Give the audiences what they want. I'm a simple millennial. You give me a T-Rex, I will enjoy it.
Especially one that's acting like a cat. You know,
Yeah.
It's like you can know exactly what they're doing, but it still works.
Yeah, it's having a little nap in the sunshine.
When it rolls over, I was like, oh.
Yeah, it's just like little kitty cat T-Rex. Yep. The other team is on to their last dinosaur, the Quetzalcoatlus. It's a hard word for me to say. I know it's based on another word, obviously. It looks like a big pterodactyl, and Zora and Loomis rappel down a cliffside to retrieve the final sample from an egg. Zora has apparently been thinking about what Loomis said before and asks what the alternative to helping Big Pharma would be. He says they could make the DNA sequence open source, no one would own the patent, and they could save tens of millions of lives, but not make any money. Zora, the mercenary, who's in it for the money, she's coming around to this way of thinking.
Okay, I'm sorry, but that's just not how anything works. This is not how any of this works. Call me the cynical Zora character. You don't open source a cure for heart disease. Call me the cynical character, but...
What? It's not like you worked in the med field for years and years.
Granted, I'm not like a biomedical researcher, but somehow I just don't think you can, I don't know, put dinosaur eggs out on the internet and say, here you go, people, manufacture a cure for heart disease.
Remember when researchers, I assume scientists, sequenced the entire human genome and it seemed like that was going to be the solution to everything, and then like it wasn't? I'm just like, I feel like this is kind of the same thing. I don't know.
It was just, it just seems so half-baked. Like, oh, there's only two possibilities in this world. We give the cure to the evil corporation, or we don't, and that is somehow better. And I don't know, maybe I'm too cynical. I was like, what? Again, talking about the Jonathan Bailey character, I felt like it just came out of nowhere for him. Like, okay, he's the awestruck scientist, but out of where did the whole, oh, we don't want to have capitalism take over come from? Granted, capitalism sucks. Of course it does. I'm not in favor of the giant corporation, but for this particular character, I felt like it came out of left field, that he was all of a sudden like, no, we're not going to be in it for the money.
He really flip-flops between being the idealist and being the realist. So it is confusing from a character perspective.
Also, none of the rope climbing made any sense. Like the rock climbing, none of this, that's not how any of this works.
I have to say I'm glad my husband didn't watch this movie with me, because I had no doubt I would never hear the end of the inaccuracies with the rappelling/rock climbing scene.
Yeah, my partner was mostly silent during this movie, and this was the only time that he piped up and was like, that's not how any of that works.
I will say, I was like, is that the shittiest rope ever? It's just gonna fray on a rock? Like, isn't that what climbing ropes are designed not to do, in fact?
I mean, climbing ropes in movies, I think, are designed to fray on a rock, but yeah, they use some terminology that I guess is just not even correct. Yeah, the rock climbing was not good.
You mentioned the possibility of mama dinosaurs before, and we do get a mama Quetzalcoatlus that attacks Loomis and Zora. Loomis manages to eject the sample and it parachutes down safely, whereas he falls off the cliff, but miraculously survives thanks to plot armor. There's no way that guy would be alive. Come on.
Unfortunately, the man who only spoke French was at this point that he got it. Like, no,
he did get eaten. Yes, the boat crew has slowly been picked off at this point.
Yeah, the non-famous actors.
Someone was eaten on the beach. Someone else was eaten somewhere else. Like, I wasn't keeping track.
One was on the boat. One was on the beach. and then one was by the bird dinosaur, which I'm very impressed that you A, knew what they were called, and B, could say that I had no idea. I said bird dinosaur the whole time.
This is another thing I looked up online. I'm like, what were the names of these dinosaurs? I also called Dolores, the baby dinosaur, a triceratops in my notes originally, but then I looked it up and it's actually an aqualops. So
Did
there
they
you go.
say that at any point?
I don't think so.
I don't think they used very much dinosaur terminology in this movie, which I don't know. My knowledge of the Jurassic Park franchise is very little, but I did feel like the dinosaur names just didn't come up very often, like really at all. They talked about the Mosasaurus
Mm-hmm.
and they named the three maybe once, but there was not a whole lot of jargon, I feel like, in this movie.
Don't quote me on this, but I do think all of the dinosaurs depicted in this movie, except for the D-Rex and also maybe except for the dinosaurs that are attacking in the convenience store, I believe all the other dinosaurs are real dinosaurs. But again, don't quote me on that. With all of their side quests complete, it's time for them to get to the helipad. Coincidentally, the Delgados are also there. How convenient. Krebs goes fully mask off. He tries to gaslight Teresa and everyone else by saying he totally tried to help her on the boat. He also draws a gun and takes the suitcase full of the samples. While they wait for the helicopter, more dinosaurs attack, of course. We get stuff in the convenience store, we get some underground tunnels, yada yada. I didn't have many comments on these action scenes because they were boring me a little bit. Did you have anything?
They felt pretty rote to me.
Yes.
Like, it's not that they didn't work. You know, as soon as the evil guy takes the suitcase and straps it to his arm, you know there's going to be a really satisfying payoff with his arm getting eaten off.
Totally. Yes,
you know.
That arm is going to...
Yeah. Anytime anyone handcuffs a briefcase to their arm, you know, like, oh yeah, I can't wait to see that arm get cut off in some
That
really
arm is
way.
coming off in some way, definitely.
That was really my only thought at this point, other than more product placement. And this time it was Dr. Pepper in the convenience store. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So I mentioned up top that Mission to Mars was guilty of this and had a very blatant Dr. Pepper product placement scene. So I guess it's the same company. It's been the same company this whole time that's injecting their stupid candy products into our movies.
I'm not sure if Dr. Pepper is part of the same. I don't think it's part of the same company, which is, I think it's an independent thing, but I did look it up later, and Dr. Pepper had a whole Jurassic Park line of like special cans and stuff. So yeah, there was definitely a Dr. Pepper product placement. And I feel like if it would have just been that, if it would have just been in the convenience store, there was a Dr. Pepper very prominently displayed in the convenience store, that would have been fine. Like,
yes,
that is a minimum level of product placement that I can accept out of a movie where like, is it dumb that it's at the final climax? Yes. But if it would have just been that one, it would have been fine. But it was throughout. It wasn't just the one. It was like just relentless. The product placement in this movie. My God.
There was even a scene when they were back on the boat when they were wanting to look at their sonar or something like that. And they have to sweep the candy off of their map to look at the map. And I was like, come on. This is just shameless. Yeah, it was very annoying. It's like, yes, a convenience store, there's an in-universe reason for there to be products, obviously. But yeah, it was too much. It was too much.
It was too much. It was like, gosh, just too much.
Cut it out, companies.
And then it just undercuts their whole message about like, oh, we're gonna make it belong to everyone.
Hey, did you like our movie's little anti-capitalist message while it was peppered with product placement throughout the entire runtime?
Do you hate capitalism too? Go buy a Dr. Pepper.
Go get a Jurassic Park branded Dr. Pepper at your local Safeway.
God.
Okay, I'm making myself sick. The helicopter finally arrives and begins to circle, but they'll only stick around for 2 minutes, as we said. At the last moment, Loomis gets their attention with a flare gun. So this is not an official Chekhov's guess of mine because it's way too late in the movie for anything new to be introduced as a Chekhov's gun. But I did want to point out Chekhov's flare gun because, of course, this movie needs to have yet another callback to the original movie. As soon as I see a flare gun, I'm like, that flare gun's going to be used, or that flare is going to be used to distract a dinosaur, a la Ian Malcolm.
Yep.
But as the helicopter is circling to land, the D-Rex dramatically emerges from the geothermal steam and takes out the helicopter, of fucking course, because that's the only reason helicopters exist in action movies, is to explode.
I will say, even though you know it's coming, I did enjoy the D-Rex chomping the helicopter. Like, I don't know, maybe that's just some deep-seated action movie thing in the human brain where you see a giant monster chomping a helicopter and you just go, yeah.
Yeah, you get that helicopter.
Those poor pilots, they didn't really have it coming, but gosh, that was fun to watch.
It does make you root for the dinosaur in a weird way. I mentioned the geothermal steam, and up to this point in the movie, we had not seen the full reveal of the dinosaur. So I appreciate that in the parlance of horror movies, they tried to keep the full reveal of the monster to the very end, just showing little glimpses and teases of it throughout. But having the steam part and showing that big bulbous monstrous head, it just wasn't scary. I was like, if this creature design were scarier, in my opinion, it could have been a very successful reveal, but it just really did nothing for me, unfortunately.
Nah. I don't know. I feel like they revealed enough of it in the trailer and in that very first scene.
Yes.
That there really wasn't that much else to reveal.
You could almost see the whole thing in that first scene. You could pretty
much see it. Yeah.
Yeah, you could see the little bump on his head. Yeah, so if you haven't seen this movie, I don't know why you're listening to this particular episode, but the D-Rex basically looks like a T-Rex, but with a big old bump on his noggin. He really reminded me of Gothmog from Lord of the Rings, if you know, you know. And also he has an extra set of arms. I have to assume that the researchers, the geneticists, felt bad for the T-Rex with his little teeny tiny arms, and they were like, you know what? Let's give him another set of arms. Bigger arms this time.
But not really that big. Just
No.
kind of, it was like we got small arms and medium arms instead of regular arms. I don't know if that was really an improvement, but I did see some fan art of the D-Rex and it was pretty dang cute.
That's the thing. It is a little bit cute, and I just kind of
Yeah.
feel bad for it, which doesn't make it particularly scary.
Yeah, it was kind of I don't know, it was a change. And again, my knowledge of the Jurassic Park franchise is very, very spotty. So I don't know, I did think it was kind of cute and it was nice what kind of happened to it in the end. I don't know, they didn't really try to kill it. I don't know if we're going there yet.
Yeah, no, let's get into it. Yeah, so everyone's fleeing towards the docks at this point in hopes of escaping via a boat. And this is when Krebs meets his gruesome, totally telegraphed death at the hands, or should I say the maw of the D-Rex, when he chomps him in half. You go, D-Rex.
That was also a satisfying moment.
Yeah.
You know it's coming, but it was nice. It was nice to see.
Yeah, so the good guys scoop up the suitcase with the, disembodied arm on it. And also, speaking of telegraphed endings, Duncan pulls an Ian Malcolm and heroically distracts the D-Rex with a flare, thus saving the kids where he had been unable to save his own son. He gets his little bit of his redemption moment. But before we see Duncan get well and truly chomped, we fade to black. And also, much like Ian Malcolm, I have to assume he's fine. Don't worry, guys, he's fine. And spoilers, he is, because less than 5 minutes later, it's revealed that he's totally okay, everybody. To which I say, stakes? Tension? No? No, we're just not gonna do that. Okay.
Yeah, it's like I'm of two minds, because on the one hand, don't kill Mahershala Ali.
No, I didn't want him to die.
But story-wise, they should have killed him.
Yes.
Story-wise, they should have killed him. I didn't want him to die. I don't want your only black lead to be the one to die. Of course I don't. But I mean, really, it just punctured the tension, and then it was like, okay, everything's fine. Zora didn't actually have to have any character growth or,
No. And it reminds me of Gosh, I keep referencing Rise of Skywalker way more than I thought I would in this movie.
Why are you reminding me of that terrible movie? I
I know,
hated it
but
so much.
when they want you to believe that Chewie is dead for like all of 20 seconds or something, and then they're like, JK, he's not. Don't worry. It's fine, guys. Don't worry. Sorry that we made you almost feel a feeling for a second.
What is it about very old franchises and fake out deaths, and we can't actually commit to doing anything new or interesting, but no one cares about dinosaurs anymore?
Yeah, sad. The good guys escape on the boat where Zora agrees with Loomis. They'll give the cure to everyone. Isn't that nice?
No, it's not, because nothing's going to come of it.
Cue the contemplative piano rendition of the theme as our heroes helicopter away. I mean boat away. Yes, they boat away into the sunrise alongside a pod of majestic pelicans. Oh no, I mean dolphins. Yes, it's a totally original and unique final shot that's not at all devoid of the meaningful symbolism of the first film. The end.
The end. And the lovely D-Rex just kind of gets to hang out on her island.
Yeah, gets to chill, eat all the candy bars she wants.
And since I didn't know about the Distortus Rex at this point, I was calling her Dolores Rex because like that was the tiny dinosaur. And I did think at some point, really, that the little tiny dinosaur, maybe the mom was going to come by. Maybe that was Distortus Rex was the mom, even though they didn't really look all that similar.
Yes.
But I thought at some point the little tiny dinosaur's mom was going to come and help them out. Didn't come of it.
No, sadly. And I don't know if it's worth pointing out, but yes, Dolores did tag along in the child's backpack at the end of the movie. So if there's to be a sequel, which I have to assume there will be, maybe we will be seeing baby Dolores again.
But hopefully they didn't take baby Dolores too far from the equator, because they made sure to tell us that these dinosaurs cannot survive in the Big Apple, New York City. So if they go back to New York City, Dolores is not going to have a fun time.
Little Dinosaur in the Big City. That's the sequel.
Oh my gosh, I would watch that though.
Wasn't there... There was an animated children's movie back when we were kids that was dinosaurs in New York City.
I was just
can't
thinking,
remember what it's called now.
Wasn't Babe Pig in the City a thing? Didn't Babe
that was
go
a
to the
thing
city?
for sure.
What is it? I guess it's just like taking animals to New York City is a fun thing.
Yes. All right, so that's the end of our movie. What did you think about Jurassic World Rebirth? Did you like it? Did you hate it?
Somewhere in between. I didn't hate it.
Yes.
I feel like I didn't hate it as much as I thought maybe I would. I don't think I'll ever think about it again after this podcast is through, until the sequel comes out. Yeah, overall, there's so many things about it that technically it's like I would have done differently or that were dumb. But at the end of the day, I don't know, it was a Jurassic Park dinosaur movie, so...
My feelings were very similar. It wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be, which I realize is a very low bar and very low praise. But, I did come out of it being like, oh, that wasn't as bad. Would I recommend it to people? Would I say go run out and watch it? No, I would not say that. Also, though, I am a Jurassic Park sucker. I think I probably will go see whatever sequels they make. I did not, however, see Jurassic World Dominion, the movie that immediately preceded this film. So I guess even the Jurassic Park franchise does reach a point where I am so bored with dinosaurs, or at least their rendition of dinosaurs, that I'm like, nah, I feel like I can skip it. So the Chris Pratt era did do that for me. Like, I got bored. I didn't care to see the rest of it. Reuniting the OG cast in Dominion, Grant, Sattler, Malcolm, that did intrigue me. They might still pull me back in with that. But I do feel like Jurassic World Rebirth is a little bit of a redemption for the franchise for me personally, enough that I will probably tune into a sequel if it's these same characters. I don't know. We'll have to see what the cast is looking like for any sequels.
Yeah, I feel like the cast really was the draw for me with this movie. I like ScarJo. I wanted to see her in another big action movie, and I wanted to see her lead it. And I think that was one of my other, not real gripes, but one of my notes about this movie is that I do think she headlined the movie. And I also don't think she had as many lines as some of the other characters.
Yes.
So as much as, I don't know, I feel like it was a good step forward for having a woman-led action film in a major franchise. Was it overly successful? Maybe not. But it worked well enough for me that I would probably go see another one.
Yeah.
I didn't see this in the theaters, but I do think it would be it's a good theater movie now that it's not there anymore, but the sequel will probably be a good theater movie if it's the same cast and a similar setup.
Totally. I agree that I think ScarJo was a real highlight of this movie. I always applaud whenever she gets that bag, especially after Disney jerked her around with Black Widow and with the salary negotiations with that. I did find it interesting, I guess, let's say, that salary negotiations were so front and center within the text of this movie. You don't see that very often in general, and even less often you see them throw out actual numbers. Like usually someone will just write something on a slip of paper and then that number will only be known to the characters. But in this movie, they're like, nope, she's making $20 million.
You're right. I didn't think of it as like a meta.
Yeah, and it just felt so explicit and on the nose. I was just like, I feel like we're meant to draw the parallels to meta real life things that have happened with ScarJo. And in that same sense, I'm picking up what they're putting down and I'm like, I'm happy for her. I think that she did a good job overall in this movie. I do feel like it verged on phoning in territory maybe a little bit, but also, I don't know. I watched a little bit of the press junkets and ScarJo seemed genuinely thrilled to be in a Jurassic Park movie. She said that she loved it as a kid and this was something that really fulfilled a childhood dream for her. And I mean, obviously she's a good actress and an accomplished actress, so maybe she's just lying during the entire press junket, but I believed it. So I was happy for her.
Yeah. And I do think it's hard because she was sort of playing a very stoic character and she has a history of playing a very stoic character. That's kind of just been her MO. So it may just be that's how you see ScarJo and you think, okay, she's kind of not really emoting and I'm not connecting too much with it. But would you have that same, I didn't have that same connection or that complaint with Chris Pratt. So.
Exactly. You mentioned that this would be a good movie to see on the big screen. I definitely agree with that. For me, the special effects were more successful than they usually are in the more recent installments of this franchise. I'm not exactly sure why, but I was like, that dinosaur looks great. I think in this particular scene, I believe that person is standing right next to a dinosaur. Like we said, not every scene was effective in this sense, but there were scenes that were effective, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. There were really only 2 instances where I thought it really didn't work. Xavier having his back to the dinosaurs, which was a cute moment, but it just didn't, it felt too green screeny. Yes. And then the big emotional moment felt a little bit too green screeny. But other than that, I agree with you. Like the D-Rex design was kind of silly, but I didn't hate it.
Yeah. And again, I don't know if they really were on a real boat on the real ocean, if they were on a real beach, if they were in a real jungle, but it was convincing to me. I felt like the environments were actually filmed on location, not on set. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I've just been fooled by very good CGI, but if that's the case, I still say bravo. I felt transported. I looked at those lush jungles and that beautiful turquoise water on the beach and I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
My eyes appreciated what we were seeing on the screen instead of that like flat, murky, gray, drab CGI that we see so often.
Agree. I think the scenes in the water, especially with like the scales coming up, those were very effective. I thought it was good.
Yeah. All right, that's going to do it for our discussion of Jurassic World Rebirth. Now it's time to go into the game and see who won. We both had the same first guess, Chekhov's Altoids, or as you called it, Chekhov's breath mints. This did not have a payoff, unfortunately. It was just product placement.
×2, because it did come back. It just didn't do anything.
Yeah, no, it's just a callback. It was just there to sell some Altoids, I suppose. My next guess was Chekhov's self-ejecting darts. These, like I said, had the obvious use within the film, the textual use in which they would come back to get the blood samples. I thought they would be used in a different, unexpected way to signal for help. That didn't happen, so subtracting points for that one as well. We both guessed Chekhov's junk food / snacks. So I feel like this is debatable. Yes, Isabella does use the snacks to befriend the dinosaur, Dolores, the baby Aqualops. But then my question is, does that even matter to the plot? Like, imagine that we deleted Dolores from the movie. Does anything remotely change about the movie? I don't think it does.
This is where I'm going to say that I should not get a point, but the movie got it wrong.
The movie got it wrong. Yes.
Right. Yeah. It did not come back in the way that I thought it would. Chekhov's snacks really was just product placement.
Yes.
But that's their bad, not our bad. Like,
I agree.
I really did think that the snacks were used in a way that just was not effective. It didn't actually do anything. It got her the little pet dinosaur. And unless that's going to play a part in the sequel, you could take Dolores out of the movie and it wouldn't really detract from the movie.
I agree with you completely. And I do kind of want to reward us points just to be like, screw you, movie. So, I'm going to give us, to break from the rules a little bit, just as a sort of fuck you to the movie, I'm going to give us each partial points for that, because I felt like we had the right idea and it was the movie that was wrong. Not
agree. The movie is wrong. The multi-million billion, I don't know. The studio is what's wrong, not us.
They should obviously listen to the nitpicking audience, clearly. We both guessed the baby Aqualops / teeny tiny dino. Again, similar thing. Not really a payoff here.
Where was the mom?
Where was the mom?
I really expected the mom to help them out in a moment where they needed to have a bigger dinosaur. I don't know, that's just such an obvious thing to do in the movie, and they didn't do it.
Yes, they needed the mom or the baby dinosaur itself to help save the day in some way. It did not happen. I'll go back to the rules and subtract points, even though we'll just say officially on the record the movie was wrong once again. My last guess was Chekhov's geothermal water pipes. No payoff for this one. Subtracting yet more points, and let's keep the ball rolling. Mel's last guess, Chekhov's stick, also sadly did not come back in any way. Yet more points subtracted. We did real good.
I think the movie did bad.
Yes, it's all the movie's fault.
Yeah.
Whew, okay, well, give me a moment to tally the final scores. Beep, boop, beep. All right, the points have been tallied. This was a close one and not anything we should be proud of. I got -3 points, but Mel, you are our winner with -2 points. Congratulations. Mel, thank you so much for coming on the podcast and, blowing me out of the water.
It's all made up and the points don't matter because we were right in our heart of hearts. We know what this movie could have been. The studios were wrong.
As always, really. Yes, I think that the paleo cardiologist would agree with us. The real heart expert, he would say, yes, you were right. The movie was wrong.
They should have left it up to the people, not the major corporations.
Oh, yes. See? we're on the same page as the movie in the end.
See?
Mel, thank you so much for joining me. I would love to have you on the podcast again sometime.
Thank you for having me. It was very fun.
And in the meantime, where can the listeners find you?
If they must find me, I'm mostly on Instagram sometimes, not all the time, at Mel of Some Trades. I'm also on Blue Sky, but I mostly do local stuff on Blue Sky. Blue Sky is a little bit of a funky platform, but I'm there as well.
And you have a website as well?
I do. It's mel-lake.com, mellake.com.
And I will leave a link to her website in the show notes, so be sure to check it out. And if you enjoyed listening to this episode, please give Chekhov's Whatever a like and subscribe on YouTube. It really helps me out. Thanks again for listening, and until next time, bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to Chekhov's Whatever. Go to chekhovswhatever.substack.com to follow along with the podcast. If you're enjoying the show, be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast app and leave a positive review. You can also find video clips and full audio episodes on YouTube, so be sure to like and subscribe at Chekhov's Whatever. And finally, you can send email to chekhovswhateverpodcast@gmail.com. All right, let's end this show with a bang.